Hi, everybody. My name is Morgan Davidson. I am the Director of Marketing and Communications for the Canadian Liver Foundation, and we're here today with another installment of our Meet the Researcher series. If you're new to the series, our intention with these videos is really to introduce you, our community, to the people who are behind leading liver disease research in Canada, and sort of pull back the curtain a little further to dive into some of the exciting progress being made to treat and manage liver disease. With International PBC Day coming up this September, we're thrilled today to be joined by Dr. Andrew Mason. Dr. Mason is a professor of medicine at the University of Alberta, where he is the Director of Applied Genomics Core and Director of Research for the Division of Gastroenterology. He is the Western Canada lead investigator for the Canadian Network for Autoimmune Liver Disease. And he studies, or the organization studies, the demographic and prognostic features of primary biliary cholangitis and autoimmune hepatitis. And he takes part in clinical trials assessing antiretroviral therapies for the treatment of PBC. So we are really excited to be speaking with Dr. Mason today to talk more about the Canadian Network for Autoimmune Liver Disease and PBC and autoimmune hepatitis in general in Canada today. So thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Mason.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
So generally, we like to start kind of high level with these. So if you can maybe just give us in your own words, an explanation about what you do with your work, share a little bit more about the Canadian Network for Autoimmune Liver Disease, what they're all about, and your role sort of within that.
Well, I never set out to sort of be a researcher, really, because both my parents were sort of high-flying academic types, basic science chemists. And so when I first started working at the King's Liver Unit, when I was a young doctor, I could see that people there who were moving on were getting excellent experience in research. So I went across to Washington University in the US, and that's where I got into molecular virology. And then I moved to Ochsner Clinic in New Orleans, and that's where I set up my lab to look for viruses that may trigger autoimmune liver disease. So at that time, it was in the late 80s rather, and hepatitis C had just been discovered by Michael Houghton and his crew. So this was all of a buzz then. So we had techniques that could find viruses, and that's when we used something called representational difference analysis and found some retrovirus sequences in patients with PBC, and then that has colored the rest of my career since then. So we've done several things. The first is to get animal models of PBC, which we've used to test drugs. So to treat this beta retrovirus we found in PBC patients. So we've tested them on this animal model, which is a NOD mouse, found that they reduced the cholangitis in that NOD mouse, and then we performed a randomized controlled trial a few years back, and the patients that could stay on therapy had really good responses, but unfortunately about 2/3 couldn't tolerate the protease inhibitors. So we stopped that study, and we're just starting a new study now treating PBC patients with reverse transcriptase inhibitors, that's Truvada, and the integrase inhibitor, which is raltegravir, and that's going very well. So patients are responding to treatment nicely and tolerating therapy, so that's great. The next step is going to incorporate our colleagues who are part of the Canadian Network for Autoimmune Liver Disease, and so this is a cross-country collaboration that I set up with Bettina Hansen. So Bettina's PI of the eastern side and I'm PI of the western side. And what we're doing with CaNAL is databasing every patient we can with PBC in a REDCap database, and the same with autoimmune hepatitis under the mentorship of Aldo Montanalosa. And really, this is set up to ask big questions about PBC. So one of our first questions is on the differences in First Nations who get worse PBC than people with European descent. Another question we're looking at is the effect of lymphopenia. Lymphopenia seems to cause more progressive disease. And so in these large cohorts of patients, we can answer these exciting patients. So those are the main three spheres. It's in the clinic is treating the virus, treating patients. In the lab is making diagnostics to diagnose disease, and then countrywide is studying the epidemiology of PBC and autoimmune hepatitis.
Super fascinating. For, I guess, in maybe layman's terms, or for somebody who might be living with PBC or autoimmune hepatitis, what is the benefit to them, I guess, directly of an organization like the Canadian Network for Autoimmune Liver Disease, and how is that helping all Canadians affected by either of these liver diseases?
Well, that's a very good question. So until recently, we had studies that would describe a few patients with disease and give you a local flavor of what's going on. And this is not too helpful when you want to understand sort of large processes. And the major evolution was probably global PBC, who got together several groups worldwide, and using their data, they could show that the blood tests that we follow for PBC, such as alkaline phosphatase and bilirubin, actually predicted survival when you look at treatment. So that was the first time when we used large data sets to help with management of disease. In fact, doing the same thing with PSC patients has shown that alkaline phosphatase is actually not that reliable for example, predicting what's happening with PSC patients. So for our patients now, we can organize trials looking at the effect of all these new therapies, such as FXR agonists and bezafibrate, and we can look at their responses and then look at specific prognostic scores to sort of adjust in our own minds whether that will help people moving down the line to treat their disease processes. So this is what we hope CaNAL will do for us locally, but certainly these large conglomerates have helped us understand response to treatment. Now, it's great that we've got these new therapies, such as the FXR agonists and the bezafibrate, fenofibrates, and the PPAR agonists. What the main problem is with these is that we're not really seeing improvement with symptoms. And this is an area that we're really focusing in on with CaNAL. So we're looking at symptomatology in patients and following them prospectively, so we can see how specific treatments act on patients, improve their lives, which is important. We're documenting that First Nations have worse disease. And I'm hopeful that I can get our retroviral studies into these analyses as well, because we're seeing improvements in brain fog and improvements in fatigue with PBC. And that's something we're not seeing with the other treatments. So CaNAL is going to be a great vehicle for us and our patients, because it's going to, keep us all together, working on trials, working on large data sets, and giving us a better understanding of the disease process for our patients.
It's wonderful. Obviously, you're, totally embedded in this work on a day-to-day basis. So what is the most exciting thing to you right now about the research and the progress being made in the study of liver disease, or I guess more specifically in your case with autoimmune hepatitis and PBC?
Well, I've been working on this virus hypothesis for about 20 years, and it's fair to say that it's not been proven, and there's some healthy skepticism around wondering whether it's the case or not. What really boosts me is I can see now that patients starting on these antiviral treatments are getting large reductions in their alkaline phosphatase. I know the treatment is working. I also know, because we're studying this, that patients are getting improvement in their symptoms. So that is a real positive for me. It's a vindication of all the work we've done over these years, and hopefully we can bring that to matriculation. So my job now is to try and get all the other centers up and running, which I'm hoping to do in the very near future. So that's my job, is to encourage my CaNAL buddies to get on board and get treating patients.
Yeah, and do you see that that progress? Like, do you get to see that firsthand in patients, or is it sort of at an arm's length? Like, are you seeing that impact in the lives of real people in your work?
Well, yes, but the thing is, you've got your own observer bias. So you say to people, "Are you feeling better?" And they don't say, "You're feeling worse." They always try and please you and say yes. But the most gratifying thing is, actually looking at the data, seeing that people do have improved cognition and improved energy following treatment. So it's always nice talking to patients, and it's always great seeing patients and telling them, this is working for you and keep up the good work.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I guess that leads nicely into my next question, which really is, what do you love the most about your job and the work that you do get to do?
I think there's several areas. One is the patient interaction, and it's good to be able to matriculate what you're telling your patients into fact and say, we'll get you in this study and you will get better and you'll feel better. And when they come back and they do, that's fantastic. The other great area is in my lab. I've got several students who are working on basic science aspects of the disease process and the epidemiological aspects through CaNAL. And so we've had 3 students who have matriculated this June in the middle of COVID, which is, a real boost for them, because it's been tough on everyone, especially the youngsters, having to be sequestered away. So it's always good to see the lab buzzing and your patients enjoying things. So that gives me really good feedback, and the energy to keep going when things have been a little bit different the last couple of years,
to say the least. You're definitely not the first to make note of working with students and sort of up and coming researchers as being a really rewarding aspect of your work. So that's also exciting, because it just means that everything is moving in a really progressive direction, and there is lots to be excited about. Part of what we like to do with these videos is also just get to know you a little bit better. So one question I always like to ask is, how do you sort of pull away from the work and unwind and relax when you're not head down in a lot of this really heavy research?
Well, my children have left home now, so one of the things I love most is seeing them when they come back. I've just become a grandfather, which is fantastic.
Oh, congratulations.
Spent a little time cuddling a little one. So we've had my daughters back, get out the karaoke machine. one of the boyfriends makes good cocktails, and so we just get a little bit silly. That's always very nice. One of the other things we love to do is travel, although that's been restricted. So I've gone up to see my daughter and we cook food for her up there. And I think that's my other big passion. I love cooking. So I've been making lots of Louisiana food. We used to live in New Orleans, and I'm sorry it's getting hit again with Hurricane Ida now.
Mm-hmm.
But if you live in New Orleans, you have to learn how to cook. So we're still making our jambalayas and our crab cakes and our etouffees and this and that, red beans and rice. So
yeah, your house sounds like a great place to go to put your feet up.
Yeah, so we feast, sing, eat, drink. We try and enjoy things, and it's just so nice to see the girls and their families. We got all of them have got dogs, so at any one time we might have 6 dogs in the house.
Wow, it's busy. And now you're adding grandkids into the mix. It's only going to get more more chaotic in the best way, though. It sounds like it's a very full, loving life that you enjoy. New Orleans is definitely, it has been on my travel list for a long time, but it's a shame to see they're getting hit really hard again. So hopefully it's not too bad, and they can bounce back. And then, the last question we like to ask, I'm always curious about this one because, doctors and researchers are always, it's such technical work, but if you had to choose a different career or a different life path, what would you have done, or what would it be?
Well, I was just thinking about that since you asked, and one of my loves is cooking. So I wouldn't mind opening, like a nice cafe, Fat Stan's Cajun Cafe or something like that. But it's actually, that's hard work, cooking. Being a singer, that would be nice. Being a personality, but in the end, I'm sort of more than happy just to be a lab doc and have lots of nice patients and healthy, happy families. So simple.
Yeah, I mean, that's more than a lot of us can hope for in this life. So, and there's no question that the work that you do is so important and means a lot, I know, to a lot of the people in our community, especially who are affected by autoimmune hepatitis or PBC. So thank you for all that work you do. That's kind of the end of my questions. So, with International PBC Day coming up, we are just trying to highlight a little bit of awareness around PBC especially. So thank you so much for coming on and agreeing to chat with us.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been great fun. Thanks.